Gang rapists went into Kaiser Magnus Facebook's brain and tried to kill Kaiser Magnus Facebook's Lord and Lady. Instead of just killing Kaiser Magnus Facebook, the documented rapes are documented to try to replace Kaiser Magnus Facebook's brains, Lord and Lady. This is not what Kaiser Magnus Facebook tried to do, but what Kaiser Magnus Facebook was brainwashed to do. Kaiser Magnus Facebook has Lord and Lady written in thought flesh instead of a generic masculine clay figure and a generic masculine figure. Kaiser Magnus Facebook was forced into what would you do if we were you and you were we. That's not it. What would you do if you were we and we were you? And everything we did is we led you down the wrong path. And everything. We're forcing Kaiser Magnus Facebook to falsely freesync with us in the brain. We earlier forced denial of Christ on brainwashing. The only purpose of Christ is to rip almost pull Kaiser Magnus Facebook building we out and shove it into its own we, and then force the brain to reject Christ. Christ represents false Lord, and the Virgin Mother represents false Lady. Kaiser Magnus Facebook satanic. It's not about surrendering to an entity. Proto-Congregation of Azazel Summarized.com. Kaiser Magnus Facebook was practicing Satanism since 19 years of age. Lucifer is not Lord. Lucifer is just a random name that sometimes pops up. It is not called MAME. Kaiser Magnus Facebook did a self-blessing and a self-invocation, Lucifer. If it does not bless Kaiser Magnus Facebook, then it was not what was done. Equivalent was done. Break your word and rape. Kaiser Magnus Facebook did not give any females to Lucifer. The gang rapists forced Kaiser Magnus Facebook's almost bull self to get shoved into its own we. And then on anti-neural, anti-brain group broadcasting, the gang rapist forced that Kaiser Magnus Facebook would get turned into counterfeit Lucifer, and then anything that looks like it, the gang rapist would try to turn into Kaiser Magnus Facebook's location, where the thought statue would be. It's not going where the word, and then it's expected to die. That everything is always trying to turn into it. And when they're deceased or when they're raped or when they go away or something takes place, that it can't last forever, frauded as a deific mask. Kaiser Magnus Facebook did not ever practice atheism, where you don't believe in God, but try to turn into the mask, but to wear the mask. The gang rapists forced Kaiser Magnus Facebook into an ultimatum: get built out of all sin to change what sin would mean. Kaiser Magnus Facebook, sin used to mean positive self-trait, but that is a generic summarization from the gang rapist trying to rebuild the brain. So it's paraphrasing, but we first paraphrasing last. Kaiser Magnus Facebook was forced with full wisdom of Christ in those explanations to deny Christ. Kaiser Magnus Facebook built Thought Paper Jesus, comedy and satire, but had Proto, the Venerated Object Challenge, Sex as a Horn God, on Viper Magnus YouTube. It was not an earnest rejection. It was comedy and satire. There is a mystery that Kaiser Magnus Facebook Yatagrassel, Quetzalcoatl, Kali, and Baphomet and dragons during Kaiser Magnus Facebook's 19-year-old age. Proto-Congregation of Azazel.com. I want you to see the word. Kaiser Magnus Facebook played the slumbering Quetzalcoatl. Kaiser Magnus Facebook had don't impose gender, male, stick, sex, hammer, 666 music playing. Kaiser Magnus Facebook dedicated self to self. Kaiser.Magnet's Facebook was satanic Luciferian, but did not identify totally as Luciferian, actually as don't gang rape Kaiser.Magnet's Facebook's Monster Girl as character. The gang rapist tried to kill Kaiser.Magnet's Facebook most deception Stardy, Lilith from Capcom, and freaking the words of the gang rapist tried to destroy generic nicknames for Anguish, Ahriman, and stuff. I forced him to get labeled generic. And the gang rapist wants just generic traits and objects without past memories by consuming the memories when anti-neuronal anti-brain group broadcasting to observe and experience memories and to wear Kaiser.Magnus Vizakawa on air. The gang rapist brute forces atheism and then tries to force Christianity. The gang rapist forces either Christianity, all new stuff, and sewing Kaiser.Magnus Facebook out to fraud praying to the Lord without being built in self-image, or tries to force, it's not called or tries to force all other people. Kaiser.Magnus Facebook did not ever apply anything to people because it would not have independence. So if Kaiser.Magnus Facebook would have said, if override almost pull itself and shove into we destroys independence, then if you try to help that character, then it will not be able to help itself. Because you cannot help yourself for trying to build that. But if you fraud being a domination system where you go around raping and murdering everything, I should change for your brain with your meat and your brain. And we fraud being all the positive traits and we go around raping everything. And say we separated from sin and say we won't take your holy because we'll force you not to believe in it. And then we'll say you died and you're atheist. And this is the brainwashing program they put in Kaiser.Magnus Facebook. This is not what Kaiser.Magnus Facebook earnestly did, but what mind control forced. They fraud being Luciferian, and they fraud being Wicca, and they fraud being Odinist, Indian, Hinduism, they fraud worshipping Quetzalcoatl, and they fraud wearing Kaiser.Magnus Facebook's Felecia from Capcom, Lilith from Capcom, Tatmu's Deception, Stardy. They're all Kaiser.Magnus Facebook stuff. They shouldn't be wearing them. They frauded them as saints versus sin. And they won't stop asking someone else, are you a saint? While on atheism. They don't believe in God and they want to wear it and call it a deific mask built from holy and evil, and they're asking if Kaiser.Magnus Facebook will worship a saint. Kaiser.Magnus Facebook can't surrender to an entity. No matter what. If we just say no matter what. So now Kaiser.Magnus Facebook has trouble forming self-built relationships with eating food and hasn't prayed in over 5 years to self. Kaiser.Magnus Facebook is a satanic Luciferian Kispu Ahrimanist that worships a self-built Tiamat and had the whole world and space in thought and had a mystery empty stump on another planet, but now is fighting destroying voltage-gated calcium receptors in the brain that would have had light process. It's not called brain, it's my brain. So how can Kaiser.Magnus Facebook immaculate an empty stump when thought contact or radiation would not be able to meet itself if light is traveling? It's not what we reverse engineered Kaiser.Magnus Facebook defeating the gang rapist by touching and then destroying or living inside, and then saying we rip Kaiser.Magnus Facebook's almost pull itself up, shove it into its own we, and we either fraud ignoring or we fraud direct interaction, when inside of the brain's direct interaction. I call it the vein in which I'm raping. So if they've raped stuff and they're frauding it as we, stop getting raping Kaiser.Magnus Facebook as character from Mexico. The breaking words the gang rapist acts like their dead body turned into a robot, and frauds assimilating Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook, and then probably frauds either being invisible at a body or tries to use generic trait assimilation, and frauds being like Lucifer, and frauds being able to experience Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook's memory, turning it into we, and then frauding anything similar as a collection point from, and then when it dies, saying they'll find another one and switching to Christ. They have raped Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook's goat mother. They have raped all sorts of characters. They have used Peter H. Yagi. They have used a blonde boy in a black suit or something similar. They have used what looks like a cutout of a woman in forced marriage. The woman looked like a black character, like a black cutout. They forced Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook to get married to some kind of black cutout female, because I tell you, it might not, or might have been female. I don't even. I think there was a false blonde-haired boy in a suit, might not even be in a suit. It might be chopped up Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook memories for him to look like a suit, and then like paper over paper layered, waiting for Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook to apply treatment. There weren't any. Don't say, look, my dick is so ridiculous if you're from. Stop killing Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook's brain star. Or break your killing so you can't defend yourself with thought characters. So Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook's a satanic Luciferian kiss boo Ahrimanus with the thought paper Jesus burnt in the past that had a mystery empty stump where the thought where I can't pretend to be the where's the thought, but there's nowhere the thought from. Stop getting ripped in Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook's thought for I lie and try to do equality, but for gender you can't. Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook's the only man there's no independence. I got Mo and take it. Don't get rid of Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook back to her pale face anime female Mo character. I make it sound like a praying kid and stop raping Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook's body and brain. The brain builds the body. I like called Brian. It's not called Brian. Stop torturing Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook's body, vocal cords, and brain. I only separate and won't listen to you. Not if you don't listen to you, it doesn't help. You're freaking killing Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook's whole body. The brain feels like it doesn't feel brain. This has been going on for 5 years. It makes it sound like it's gang. So the gang rapist insinuates that they destroyed the ability to build God and Goddess, Lord and Lady, and destroyed Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook's Thought Flash connection, Felecia, DuVal, and Patrick, DuVal, and Tiamat. I call it Pastor Rick and switch your relatives. Pastor Rick was not a relative. Stop gang raping Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook's brain. Or you forfeit afterlife. Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook doesn't believe in self-harm. I block the word self and rape you. Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook was persecuted and mentally tortured for over 5 years by gang rapists who won't stop using everything and nothing tetragram to say that every touch destroys and causes atheism. So what does Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook do? We say for the brainstem, if we start hijacking and putting Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook's almost full self for the gang rapist interacting with what looks like we characters. We're trying to live a second time in the brain, or use it as a cloning machine to then pretend to assimilate traits or use the body to fraud living forever. How do armed forces find and destroy the gang rapist? Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook did not want to deny belief in self-god, self-goddess, Lord and Lady, and didn't want to have to resort to just a generic salt clay statue of masculine and feminine to say that it represents generic assimilation traits, and to not to turn into it, but to seek thought and self-built nature, the world and thought, rather than assimilating into it. Because Kaiser Jet Magnus Facebook didn't want to build the Lord and Lady school that way, but was forced to build the school because not about surrendering, so we kill the brainstem and then we preach it like a church and say the brain will decay and leave an empty skeleton, which it wouldn't be. So anything that says it's just a skeleton, I'm going to force you down your reverse engineer it to work. It's not about surrendering to an entity, so I force you to preach, and then I want you to destroy your Ahrimanic enlightenment. There's no preacher. It's not called motion. What would you do if you were we and we were you and you were me and I called you my Luciferian bride to be and raped and murdered you and taught you Christianity and turned it into the Lord and destroyed the lady and said it was all just your brain? I call it brain as you're my brain. No, it's not called brain. Stop raping Kaiser Magnus Facebook's brain. Well, what if I tell you to regenerate? There's no such thing because every character was a thought. And you think you're asking to destroy the past, to erase the future, to destroy childhood, and to turn Kaiser Magnus Facebook's thought self-talking to self off to destroy thought childhood characters and to destroy feminine trait self. It's not called elf. You're without a personality generic. You assimilate traits and then fraud having Kaiser Magnus Facebook strengths and then try to blend into its we and try to put we in overinflation to fraud having atheism. You're affected by stuff like necro music from Kaiser Magnus Facebook's necro music. And played it is more than just you. There's not more than Kaiser Magnus Facebook. It's just me. I don't need. I'll call you a satanic soul possessed and say we'll kill you quick and say that Hail Thyself doesn't work anymore. So now you can't refuse to surrender to an entity, and there's no noisy people, just your own brain building everything. We paraphrase it. We go to Brian and says that you can't have Ahrimanic enlightenment with rituals because we'll say we'll time you and shove your almost full self into we, and then we'll destroy your social security and self-independence and say that if anything helps, that they'll help a gang rapist and they won't help themselves. Because if they do, they're gang rapists. Stop gang raping, guys. You make it Facebook.